Well, hello there. This is Michael from Managed WordPress, and today we'll be looking into Kinsta. Kinsta is a well-known premium WordPress hosting company and provider, and it's favored by many bloggers and WordPress professionals alike. And today I will be going through Kinsta, looking at the features, and also give my opinion about that. So let's go ahead to Kinsta and log in. So if you want to, of course, if you want to know more about the feature of Kinsta, I would really recommend to look on the site. But in short, they offer features like Google Cloud Engine-based hosting, fully built-in caching, developer features, quite elaborate safety, additional tools to migrate, clone, and have staging sites, and so forth. All the goodies you need to run a good WordPress website. So that's great. We have arrived at Kinsta login and just let's log in. And in a moment, we'll be arriving at the Kinsta dashboard. And there we are. This is the Kinsta dashboard in which you can see all the basic statistics for your Kinsta websites. And this is already something I really like about Kinsta. So at the moment you log in, you get an overview about your websites, the visits, the amount of data that's transferred, the visits on your website, the invoices that are coming up, how many resources you have been used, and so forth. It gives an overview. It's also a good welcome, and as you can see, it's also a neat looking dashboard. So let's go ahead and actually add a WordPress website. And maybe I forgot to mention, but Kinsta is a managed WordPress hosting company, so they only support WordPress and they totally optimize their platform for running WordPress. So let's go to sites. And as you can see here, I have a test site running. And for this walkthrough/review, we'll be adding another site. Well, as you can see, there's a clear button on the top of the screen, add site. And you can choose the location. Actually, many locations of the world are supported by Kinsta, which is great because it allows you to choose a location which is most closely to the visitors or the majority of the visitors of your website. But I will be just choosing the Eemshaven because I'm living in the Netherlands. Just give it a name, and we will be using if you click this, you can add your own domain name, and if you keep this Kinsta, it will be added on the domain of Kinsta. You can even specify to don't install WordPress, but to my opinion, it doesn't make sense if you're using Kinsta because, well, Kinsta is for hosting WordPress websites. So actually, you can also add a brand new WordPress install here or clone an existing environment, which is a helpful tool to clone a website that's already running. And if you choose this one, you can select the site from the current sites that are running and even have a staging site, copy them. But I will talk about the live and staging functionality later. So let's add a brand new WordPress install. We just call it test site, test user, marvelous password. Use. And as you can see, you can also choose the default language for your WordPress installation, install WooCommerce and Yoast SEO, two WordPress plugins which are used quite often. You can install them by default. Well, for this, we won't be using them. So just click Add Site and your site is being added. So usually it did take some time. The previous site I added took, I think, between 5 to 10 minutes to be added. And that's for me a little bit of downside, that it takes such a long time to have a site added. On the other hand, it's still a short notice. And there we are. Our new website has been added. Let's look into it in our test site. And there we are. Our new test site has been added. You can just look it up over here in the overview of our site. If you click on it, all the site related settings will open. So in the first screen, you will get the basic information about the location, the data center, the IP address that you can use to set up your DNS settings, also the SFTP or SSH access, and of course the access to the database of WordPress, an option to delete your website. There's also a tab about in which you can connect the several domains to this website. So if I would run this website on a domain of my own, I could add the domain here. And of course, I have to set up this domain at my domain register correctly. And there's a tab for backups, which are usually done every day. And if you want to have like an hourly or 6-hour backup, you have to pay an additional fee for each website, which is actually quite a hefty fee. There's also a possibility to create a manual backup. For example, if you're doing some heavy development work or if you want to test some things and want to backup before. And in the following tab, you will have an overview of the system generated backups. Well, because this install is new, there are no backups in here, unless you can manually download backups. So let's create a manual backup for the time being. Now the backup is being made, and as you can see, it is done quite fast. And you can even choose where to restore, either the staging or the live environment. Speaking about that, as you can see here, we're looking into our test site. We are looking into the live environment. In here, you can actually choose the environment for the site you're looking into. Actually, a staging environment is an environment that can be used for testing and development and to change all kind of things which you do not want to have on the live site. Yet, it's often used also by WordPress developers to build a new site or make changes or test new plugins or themes or any software on this given site before putting it on a live website. So let's go to the next top tools. There are actually a number of tools which Kinsta offers. The good thing of Kinsta is that it has built-in caching, and it does not require any caching plugin to run quite performant. And caching is a technique to store dynamically generated web pages in an efficient manner so your website can handle more visitors and also loads a lot faster. Well, obviously, there is also an SSL certificate, which is, in my opinion, a basic requirement for a good web host. You can force this HTTPS connection. There's also a possibility to change the PHP version to another version. You can restart your PHP, and also, which is quite awesome, the new relic monitoring tool. This is actually a tool. I won't go into detail, but this tool can be used to monitor the performance of your application, and in this case, your WordPress installation in detail. So you can see detailed information about what parts of your code and what parts of your website are slugging the performance and are sluggish in performance. At last, there's also a pretty handy tool called Search and Replace, and in this tool you can use to replace value in your database. So, for example, if you would move the whole website to a new domain, you could change the old records to the new records. And it's pretty easy. You can search for a certain value and replace it for a certain value. And the Darwin option, make sure no changes are done. If you untick this, the changes will actually be done on the website. So, for example, if you search for hello world and we make it hello universe, and just confirm it. Well, there is also a tool to add custom redirect rules. On more old WordPress hosting projects, this was usually done using .htaccess, but in here you can add custom redirect rules. So you can redirect certain pages to other pages, for example. At last, there is following, and there's a tab about the plugins, the WordPress plugins that are active on your website. So even outside your WordPress installation, you can see that these following plugins are used. There's functionality to block certain IPs to access your website. Quite useful if you have bots that spam your website, or if you have hackers or hack attempts originating from the same IPs. There's an option to enable the Kinsta CDN, which is actually based on Key CDN, and it is included in most Kinsta plans. And a CDN, which is an abbreviation for Content Delivery Network, is very useful if you have website visitors from all over the world, because the static content, which are, for example, images, but also styles and scripts, are served to these visitors from a server which is most close by to the actual physical location of these visitors. And another pretty useful feature of Kinsta is the logs feature. So I don't have to go to certain files or log in using SFTP or something else to view my logs. I can view our error logs just in here. And as you can see, it is still pretty empty because this site is quite new actually. So let's go back to the info. And if we would go to this link, we would see that WordPress is just installed here. And it is an empty WordPress installation. I'll just log in for a moment. So if you log in to WordPress, to a new installation of Kinsta, we'll just see that it's a plain WordPress installation with Kinsta Cache enabled. This is a built-in function of Kinsta which allows you to purge the cache. And what it means is that a copy of a page is saved each hour, and it is served to your visitors, so the website loads a lot faster. But if you update a page, so if you change the title or add new content, you want to purge the cache for this given page, so the updates are reflected in the page that is served from the cache. Quite useful feature, and for the rest, they keep the WordPress pretty clean, so there are no weird plugins besides the usual plugins installed, the usual themes you will see installed, so you have the total WordPress for yourself and can start building website as it. So let's go back to the control panel of Kinsta. And there we go on the control panel of Kinsta. Now, what I really like about the interface is the usability, and that actually managing the site is all done in a single interface in here. You just have a list of your website. You can click, and there you are. You have all the related tools and settings and features of your website. Also, the way they deal with staging environment and live environment is quite nice. So you can just click here, go to the staging environment, and for our test site we didn't set up a staging environment yet. So I'll just click create staging environment, and now the staging environment will be created. And a lot of similar tools that are available for the live environment are also available for the staging environment. So all the features we talked about before. This actually sums up in my opinion, the most important part of Kinsta hosting. I just want to show you the other functionalities that Kinsta has. There is a tab for migrations, and if you have a starter account at Kinsta, you will get a 1 premium migration credit, and they will migrate a WordPress website for you from another provider to Kinsta. There's also the possibility to do my basic migration for free if you're coming from their competitors. So that's quite funny. You see actually the major WordPress hosting parties, you can see them listed here. Most are quite known, and they will migrate your website obviously for free if you're coming from them. And well, it makes sense. It looks like a valid strategy. So it's quite useful that there is at least one premium migration credit here, and you can have at least one website migrated for free to Kinsta. Saves a lot of hassle. So there's another feature which is called the Kinsta DNS, and actually it's a partnership with the Amazon Route 53 premium DNS server. And well, maybe you have an internet domain registered somewhere, and this domain this domain points to a certain address and IP address of a server, and usually these details are resolved by a name server, and it takes some time to look up your DNS actually, and the better your name server provider is, the less time it takes to look up your DNS. And actually Amazon Route 53 is a domain name server provider, which is quite performant. You can also see on the Kinsta website an article about why premium DNS services matter. And other services, for example, Cloudflare, you may have heard about them. You may even be using them. In essence, if you have to do a request to a certain domain, for example, website.com, and you're using a premium DNS server, the lookup for this domain will be faster if you're using a premium DNS service. So the good thing is that they partner them, so you will get 3 domains for free at Amazon Route 53, which is great. So that covers the Kinsta DNS service. There's also an analytics tab in which you can see detailed information on actually all your websites. So the number of visits, the bandwidth, the usage of your content delivery network. Also dispersion, so how many handheld, how many desktops are visiting your website. Also in time, you can select time slot in which you want to see the statistics. You can look into the performance, the response time, also the throughput and the limit on PHP workers. Just in short, PHP Worker is yeah, how do you explain it? It talks about how many visitors or how many PHP processes WordPress can handle in PHP is actually the language in which WordPress for the most is developed, aside of JavaScript, of course. And PHP workers help you to process requests that are done in PHP. So you can also see the limit of works that is available here. Also, how many Ajax requests are done. And you can see which request takes most of the time in here. So as you can see, I have done multiple requests which took more time, such as load tests before. One thing to mention is that you can also filter the stats for a website. So this are actually the stats for all of the websites. And there's another tab for responses. So in total, we've had 260,000 requests, from which the majority was successful. There were some errors, and actually that was because of the load testing I did before. And you also see that a couple of redirects happened. This is pretty useful screen as well, because you will see if your website will be having a lot of errors, and for example, if visitors will arrive at a lot of 404 errors, and for at last, you can see how many requests hit the cache and how many missed the cache. What this means is that if the cache is hit, the caching mechanism of Kinsta is successfully used. So this walkthrough is not about caching, and I talked about it before, but actually how WordPress works is each time you visit a page, WordPress uses PHP to dynamically generate this page. So it has to get information from the database and use functions to build up this page. And that actually costs server resources, so the number of visitors is limited if you do it like this way. But what caching is in a basic sense, and then I talk about page caching, is that it makes a copy of this page, a pre-generated copy, and it serves that to a visitor. And it doesn't have to regenerate the page all the time. And it works pretty well if you have a static page such as your home page. It does not really change that often, meaning that often not every 20 minutes or every hour. And if you serve a cached copy, your website can handle a lot of more visitors. So here you can see how many, how often this cache was hit and how many requests did not hit the cache. And furthermore, there's also a geo and IP tab, and in this you can see from which location most of the requests came. So you can see here that my load testing was performed from the United States, actually. And you see that all the requests came from the Netherlands, Germany, and so forth. Obviously, there is a billing tab in which your billing settings are set up, your invoices, you can add payment methods, and there are more details. Not that interesting. And there's another feature which is quite useful, and you can add a user, more users to your installation. You can add an email address here, and also choose which permissions this user have. So you can actually make this user give it site access, for example, to only a certain website, or you can have it full company access. So actually, it has access to your whole company, and basically most of all the websites and functions here. And within company access, there is a distinction of 3 levels in different kinds. You can see as you can see here below. So this is a very useful feature if you're working with clients or with external developers or with teams. And if you want to have limited access for these people. And at last, we have there an activity log, and these are basically the things users are doing on the Kinsta platform itself. And furthermore, there is a link to the knowledge base, and the knowledge base is basically a very big, how you call it, a very big stack of articles about the several features and other things that I needed to run Kinsta successfully. So I also, as you can see, I've been load testing Kinsta, and they're pretty performant. The websites load pretty fast. Within, I tested the loaded WooCommerce stream, it will load in within half a second. And also subscription, I had could easily handle up to 1,200 concurrent visitors. So these are visitors that are visiting the website at the same time, and also each second they're doing one request to your website. And that's actually pretty good performance, because actually Kinsta is limiting the number of requests you can do on the platform for valid reasons. So performance-wise, this was not the ceiling yet. So, well, to conclude this this walkthrough and review, I must say I'm impressed by the performance of Kinsta. Also, the usability is great. I've been looking into the documentation and articles. They have many articles about WordPress and about how the platform works. I've also been testing the support. I have a couple of WordPress related questions, and well, basically most of them were answered to satisfaction. Sometimes it took a little time to get an answer, but most of the time it was still within 3 minutes, which is great. I also love it when companies have just chat support. And as you can see, as I find out, it's also the most straightforward method of support, with the chat icon here on the right. So is there a downside on Kinsta? Well, what I found is that Kinsta is quite pricey. You start from one website, starting from $30 a month, and also if you want to have add-ons such as Redis for object caching, Elasticsearch, and also as you saw, hourly backups, you pay quite some fee, but you will get great support, great performance, and also a platform, which is a great pleasure to use.